So why is it when it matters most, we do our worst? Well, it turns out in crucial conversations, we feel like we're under attack. And whether you realize it or not, when we feel like we're under attack, all that blood goes back to what we call our reptilian brains to get us ready to fight or flight. And so when it matters most, we do our worst. And the problem is, we don't even realize that we're part of the problem. We're often on the wrong side of our eyeballs. And when that happens, our motives degrade to what we call these unhealthy motives of dialogue. Unhealthy motives of dialogue. Be right, look good, save face, punish, blame, avoid conflict, versus the healthy motives of dialogue is to produce results, find the truth, learn, build relationships. So let me ask you, what's the difference between the unhealthy motives and healthy motives of dialogue? What's the difference between the two columns? Yeah.
And one looks more selfish.
Yeah, absolutely. The unhealthy motive is about who? Me, right? Where the healthy motives is about us, right? The other thing I would say is probably the healthy motives are maybe just a little bit more productive. I mean, can you imagine going home to your significant other and said, I had a really productive day. I was right 3 times. I avoided conflict twice and I punished once. It's an Arby's kind of night, right? So, how many of you have ever been driving to work and don't even remember how you got there? It's just natural. You don't even think about it. Yeah, right? It's your routine. Raise your hand high. All right. Keep your hands up. Keep looking around the room. And just a little note, do not be driving in front or behind these people. All right? That's your public service announcement for the day. Now, let me ask you, on a day that there's an unexpected detour, do you find yourself just a little bit more awake? Yeah? Why?
It's out of the norm.
It's out of the norm, yeah, right? We could be, yeah.
Stressed out, you might be running late.
I'm stressed out, I'm running late, right? And so it's out of the norm, I'm stressed out. What you may not realize is that you're asking your brain questions. If I take a right here, am I going to continue to be late? Will that help me? If I take a left here, am I going to get more lost? When you ask your brain questions, guess where the blood has to go? Back to that prefrontal cortex, back to your higher order thinking of the brain. So let me introduce you one of the most important questions you can ask yourself when conversations start to fail. First, what am I behaving like I want? Now, I know that is bad grammar, right? But let me give an example. So I have 2 beautiful stepdaughters who have been in my life for over 20 years now. And my eldest stepdaughter, Claire, when she graduated from college, moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, which is about 3 hours from where we live. We have a great relationship, and I really missed her. So I want her to call me more often. So when she finally calls me, what do you think I say? Why haven't you called? In fact, I'm not even that mature. Claire, do I know something? Claire who? Because I'm really mature like that, right? So what am I behaving like I want when I do that? How would you describe my motive? I want to punish her, right? Now, if you look at that next set of questions, I ask myself, well, wait a minute, what do I really want? And notice the operative word is for. It's not only for myself, which is I want a good relationship, it's for the other person, for Claire. Notice the distinction between for versus from. From, I'm taking, this is what I want her to do for me, versus for, I'm putting myself in her shoes. I'm thinking, why would she want to be on the phone with me? Well, if I'm in her shoes, I would want to call, not to feel guilt-tripped in. And so that's what I want for Claire. And what I want for the relationship is a healthy, open communication. And what I want for the organization or our family is a healthy, open, honest relationship. And so if that's the case, the last question is, how would I behave if that's what I really wanted? Next time she calls, what do I need to say? It's great to hear from you, right? Because that's what I really want. So let me share with you where this skill actually came from. As I mentioned before, all of the principles and skills that you're learning are coming from research. Over 30 years of observational research. And one of the research was Joseph was working with an individual by the name of Greta. Greta was a VP of a telecom company who was going through some tremendous cost-cutting activities. But for whatever reason, she could not get all of her managers behind this cost-cutting activity. So she decided to have all of her managers come together in a room. She shared with them, here's where we are as far as the forecast, here's where we are as far as expenses, here's where we are as far as revenue. Guys, if we don't do something different, we're going to have to do the unthinkable. We're going to have to lay people off. Help me understand, why can't we get behind this cost-cutting initiative? Well, after a long, uncomfortable silence, there was a gentleman in the back of the room who raised his hand. He said, Greta, I think I know why. She said, great, tell me. He said rather snidely, you know what, while you're telling us to sharpen our pencils to the nub and use both sides of the paper, we hear you're building a satellite office where the furniture alone costs well over a couple $100,000. So it's a little bit difficult to get on board with your cost-cutting initiative. Well, apparently Joseph's on stage watching her. Greta turns bright red. She strangles the microphone and she goes like this. Joseph's watching her and said, you know what, it's over. It's absolutely over. But here's the interesting thing that happened. She took a breath, her hands went down by her side, and she responded to that gentleman by saying, you know what, that's a really great question. And from there proceeded to have a really healthy dialogue. Well, Joseph went up to her afterwards. He didn't care about the cost-cutting initiative. He said, what happened in that moment when you went from strangling the microphone to be able to respond the way you responded? Here's where the skill came from. Greta said, the first thing I thought about is, what do I really want? What do I really want? And the first thing that came to her mind was, I want to hurt that gentleman really bad. You see, the motive you can't see controls you. Do you hear that? The motive you can't see controls you. So by putting that out there for you to look at, then you get to decide. And what I will make explicit that is implicit is, what do I really want in the long term? In the short term, he embarrassed her. She wanted to hurt him. But when she realized in the long term, I got to get everyone behind this cost-cutting initiative, otherwise we're all doomed, she realized that the conversation that the gentleman served up in the back of the class was the conversation they needed to have to get unstuck. What was happening and what didn't get out was the scope of the project had changed. It was no longer going to be her satellite office, but they changed it to be a customer demo site. And so they were doing some things to make the office a little nicer to attract customers. She also said she took some responsibility for some of the overspending. Because that information never got out, the rumor mill was rampant that Greta was a hypocrite. Once the scope became clear and that information got out, results soon followed. So as soon as conversations start to fail, get your motives in the right place by asking yourself, what do I really want? Not only for myself, but for the other person, for the relationship, and even for the organization.